Due to circumstances beyond my control, the video you are about to watch contains outtakes from the film Rango'. Even if you haven't heard of Tim and Eric,
Hubel,
Paul Scheer,
Rob Hubel,
Paul Scheer,
you've likely encountered some of their work, whether in advertisements such as their Old Spice spots, or their completely unhinged purple mattress campaign more recently.
What a creepy dream, I was in a plane crash.
We are the Purple Boys. Let's sleep.
Surely you've at some point encountered their work in meme form. Any given project of theirs is certainly not going to be for everyone.
What percentage of people share your sense of humor?
There's a simple dip test you can do. String down your throat, it turns blue, you got our sensibility.
17% of the population.
But their body of work is diverse enough that I'm willing to bet there's going to be something for you in there somewhere. The specific something I'm going to talk about today isn't actually content they've directly created. It's nonetheless a fascinating and very, very funny part of their collaborative career that isn't talked about enough. They're insane promotional interviews.
Hi.
Do your radio voice. Action.
Hi.
Eric Wareheim, so excited to be here.
Well, thank you, and I am Tim Heidecker.
It's coming!
Just turn it off. Turn it off. Just completely turn it off.
I love to walk out of here. I actually can't find the exit door.
I'm just done. I'm done with it. Anything else?
Despite being a prolific comedy team regularly pumping out a steady abundance of content, they've managed to maintain a degree of mystery throughout their careers, at least up until recent years. Nowadays, through their more candid projects such as Eric's cookbook and foodie accounts and Tim's podcast, it's a lot easier to get closer to the real minds behind all of the insanity. Beyond that, through their watch-along specials, we now have access to at least seemingly genuine perspectives on their own body of work. This wasn't always the case though, far from it. Their entire career always felt designed to blur the lines between performance and reality. And the biggest reason for this is that for the better part of it, they were both almost exclusively disingenuous in almost every public appearance. A creative with significant enough involvement in a project will participate in interviews to candidly talk about that project and convince people to engage with it.
If you go see it and see the whole movie and stay till the very end, you get a $25 gift certificate to Walden Books.
Tim and Eric will do no such thing. There's no dropping character after the curtains fall. Imagine seeing a play like Hamilton and after the show you meet the guy and he won't stop rapping about ships or whatever that show entails. There was never really a divide between the comedy and promotion. They gave a lot of interviews, but for the most part, there was never that moment of setting the bit aside. In some cases, the promotion was arguably even more absurd than whatever they were meant to be promoting, and sometimes didn't remotely have anything to do with it.
Can't get this bread in my hat.
No bread in your hat today?
I can't get it in there, it's too big.
When they weren't being blatantly insincere,
We're so excited to be part of the Chicago scene. Thank you.
or even outright antagonistic, they were declining to participate entirely.
Is there a coin toss when it came to whose name would be first in the title of the movie?
Though creating some awkward exchanges, their ability to improvise and to create these insane scenarios and inspire these bizarre conversations can be endlessly entertaining to watch.
And everybody go check out $2 billion movie. March 2nd.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. A more analytical mind might view this as a statement. Some Andy Kaufman-esque dilution of the self or a subversion of these established promotional formats as a condemnation of the various systems that control the success of their art. There might be some strong arguments to be made along those lines. But most importantly for me, these interviews are just plain hilarious and some of my favorite guilty pleasure videos. The jokes, the acting, the various interviewers' reactions, I seriously don't think I could make it through any given one of these without laughing out loud if I tried.
Get some water in you.
With their early interviews, you could argue that it really fits the tone of their work.
Sir, may I have a pie? And he says, of course, I'll bring a pie out. And he brings out just some meat.
Some of the humor would resemble a sketch of sorts, aimed at conveying the sense of humor of the show rather than directly talking about it. Back in 2009, in the early days of their Adult Swim sketch comedy show, Tim and Eric Awesome Show Great Job, they went on G4's Attack of the Show to promote the newest season's DVD release. They showed up with the DVDs taped all over their bodies, unwilling to talk about anything else than the DVDs themselves.
DVD Season 2, available on DVD.
It's a fully digital
This is
release.
actually, yeah, they are releasing the DVD. First of all, who's releasing the DVD? I don't want a CD.
Right.
I want the DVD.
Anytime the interviewer tries to steer the conversation to other topics, they dodge the questions and go right back to talking about DVDs.
You guys have a great character in Stephen Brule, and I read online you guys might be doing a spin-off.
I got it.
Maybe a Stephen Brule's own. Oh,
Yeah.
is it on the DVD?
No, but I did want to tell you guys that it is Region 2. I put it in at home, and it was a blast because it worked right away.
At a certain point, they aren't even talking much about the specific one they are selling. They're just describing the basic concept of a DVD or the technology in general.
You can pop this in your home theater system. You can put this on your computer. It's Region 2 is great. It's fully digital.
The plastic comes off. You're not going to have a problem getting that out.
Guys.
But you'll also be able to use the disc as a DVD to play the DVD with.
The funniest part for me is their delivery of those over-explanations of simple concepts with this surreal and somewhat unsettling, dopey earnesty. Ironically, the interviewer even draws the comparison between Tim and Eric and the infamous Joaquin Phoenix interview on David Letterman.
That's
We're
fun?
having fun. Just relax, seriously. I'll come to your house and chew gum.
Okay, I don't have to chew the gum.
No, just relax.
I won't chew the gum.
This was an incredibly awkward interview in which Joaquin Phoenix was not being genuine, but was playing a version of himself consistent with his reality-bending documentary film, I'm Still Here.
Joaquin, I'm sorry you couldn't be here tonight.
A relevant comparison to draw, and a good question given Tim and Eric's surrealist approach to their public image. I wonder how they might respond to this thoughtful prompt.
What do you think about Joaquin, like judging from his performance?
I hate to interrupt.
If I could just pounce in on that, we have music on these DVD menus, so once you pop this in your DVD player, Kev, the music pops up, and it gives you a whole wonderful viewing experience.
In 2012, Tim and Eric released their film, Tim and Eric's $1 Billion Movie, alongside which came a studio-contracted promotional press tour that seriously kicked things up a notch. Tim Heidecker somewhat recently expressed that he actually holds some regret for certain moments in interviews during this period.
It was really the first time anybody outside of this very small, specific, you know, like the AV Club or something, suddenly we're doing junket interviews with like a local news station. And let's use this opportunity to be smart-ass jackasses and entertain ourselves. And it's funny, some of it just feels like you guys are just assholes.
I understand what he's saying, but it doesn't change the fact that these are some of the funniest examples of performative trolling on the internet. It doesn't really come across as disrespectful because it's performed so well with such consistently odd choices from both actors, and their always strong improvisational instincts elevate the obnoxious concept to something beyond hilarious. I almost get the feeling at times the movie was designed just to make this ironically detached press tour happen, though I know it's not the case. Their main bit for this slate of appearances was essentially to give the worst conceivable interviews and almost entirely avoid talking about the movie itself. These interviews are full of cringeworthy, awkward moments, long fake stories, and complete lies.
I remember one of us, I can't remember who, says, what do we put a wolf in it? And I started screaming. I mean, I almost jumped out a window. I
had to hold him back. I said, what are you doing?
And he goes, I'm writing it in. I go, stop, we gotta think about this.
I went, W-O. He's like, hold on.
I said, cut. And everyone was freaking out.
And in moments, complete and utter chaos.
Oh, yeah!
In some of the funniest interviews, they actually do answer the interviewer's questions, but they answer them with complete bullshit. They so earnestly tell these long-winded, obviously false stories.
A long story, and it starts with our births, which I'll begin in great detail. And I know you have a funny story about being born.
I do. I'm so excited for you to finish your story so I can tell my story.
In one interview, they're asked about their origins as comedians, and this sends them into a very, very long tirade about the different sects of clowning as they make up details on the spot about the bizarre shows that they used to perform.
Well, Eric and I both went to clown school.
I was into gazing, Tim's into tickle clowning.
What if we mixed these schools?
Yeah.
And they said, absolutely not. If you even get near doing that, you're out.
They're asked how they got their show, and that sends them into another completely ludicrous tangent.
We just entered the television sweepstakes. American television channels hands out 35 shows a year. That's how shows like Glee get started.
With my wife tiptoeing the news, and I slapped her right in the face because I got so excited, and my wife started crying, and I held her and said, honey, don't worry, I got a show. You know, that's what the whole slap was about.
When the topic comes to the $1 Billion Movie, they go into this hysterically nonsensical story about how they got the funding for the movie by scamming relief organizations by faking an earthquake on a small island.
Just go with a sledgehammer and wreck the street a little bit. And then start making calls. The Dakunis are like, please, sir, there's been no quake. We don't need your assistance. But the UN and all the UNICEF and those people are just like, here's the money. Wow. We wish you the best.
In this interview, their matter-of-fact, self-serious delivery makes every far-fetched lie that much funnier and keeps the joke from becoming too grating or obnoxious. They'll pick a topic and never stray from it, no matter how hard the interviewer may try. In one interview, they keep bringing everything back to babbling about completely made-up religious practices and their minister named Wang in one of the most absurd free association tangents I've ever seen.
Minister Wang being anointed.
We're going against Wang. We're taking off our anointment cap and putting on this director cap. It doesn't feel good.
Wang doesn't even like you to wear hats hats in the house. Can you imagine seeing Wang with a cap on? Not even at our softball game. He wears a helmet because you have to because of the league regulations, but very reluctantly.
Then when we come back for confession, he was not wearing his helmet. He's been hit.
I don't need that helmet to softball. I go, well, they're hard. It's moving quite quickly.
A head that small, he needs to protect from the softballs. I know we are in sin right now, and I just hope he wears his helmet on the day of anointment.
In some instances, they're completely antagonistic towards the interviewer while making a mockery of the whole exchange.
I'm so close to walking out, but I want you to know if I walk out, it's not personal. It's because I have no respect for this exchange that we're having.
In certain interviews, they harshly judge the questions instead of answering them.
Give me. Oh my God, he's got 7 more. How many Academy Awards will it win? I'm taking this in, I'm gonna piss on it. Here it is. Here's your questions, wet with my piss. Thank you.
In others, they act personally offended for seemingly no reason.
Thumb war question, like I'm a 4-year-old.
In maybe the most unhinged, surreal, and chaotic interview from this period, they hardly even acknowledge the interviewer.
Has anybody got any gum?
And instead just wildly mime around doing random tasks and burping before snapping into an oddly confrontational state.
Eat the cookie! What?
Eat the whole cookie! Eat the whole cookie!
Even with no interviewer present, Tim and Eric wouldn't stop trolling. It's just the two of them reading fan questions, and the whole thing is being treated as an absolute joke.
South Doyle High School. Hey, any South Doyle High School nuts out there?
So dumb.
We're actually going to be coming by there. A little promotional thing. We're going to be spending the day at South Doyle.
I would love to hang out with Doyle.
Almost every question is either met with a blatant lie.
Eric and I are going to be starting production on our very, very own Star Wars related sketch comedy show using little puppets that we've designed, and it's going to be just a rip-off of Star Wars and also Seinfeld.
An odd overreaction or straight up negativity.
What kind of dumb name is Zitch?
The whole time there's this childish distraction coming from both of them that builds to whatever this is. One of the most iconic interviews they ever gave was on a stage at Sundance. They start the interview clearly upset about something, and in the most random way I can think of, start complaining that their movie has been altered for the screen.
Initially, we were excited to come to Sundance, show our film premiere tonight. Sure. We got Rango'd.
They have decided to intercut outtakes from the film Rango into our film.
They keep repeating these complaints and spinning them out into made-up stories.
We sat down with Robert last night. I'm talking Redford. What's up with the Rango thing? I mean, he went totally blank.
And I say, what about it? And he goes, can we talk about something else? And I go, ooh.
They act like studios adding Rango outtakes to the movies at the last minute is something that happens often, and filmmakers need to be aware of it.
Call your agent, call your lawyer, say, am I gonna get Rango'd? You don't fool a couple of old timers like Eric and I. We've been around the block. We know when you're gonna Rango us.
It's such a ridiculous subversion of what this interview would ideally be. They're clearly not being themselves. They're complaining about something completely made up.
It's a 75% Rango at this point.
They turn their opportunity to connect with the audience at Sundance about their film before screening it into a barrage of repetition with one infinitely stupid joke that they keep reframing.
I know a lot of people out there might have friends or family involved with the festival. Call them now and ask them to de-Rango our film. Get rid of the Rango and just see the film the way we made it.
I think this one really succeeds as a piece of comedy in a significant way. It's one of those lightning in a bottle opportunities for the perfect joke on the perfect stage at the perfect time with the perfect context. It's definitely one of the interviews I think of when I say it almost feels like they made this movie specifically to allow for stuff like this to happen.
Am I being Rango'd?
We've been Rango'd.
We've been Rango'd.
The saga of Tim and Eric interviews by no means ended there. Their interview on The Late Show with Colbert is done in full clown costumes and quickly turns into something else.
I've got the kids. I've got the kids.
The interviews they did for their Twilight Zone style anthology series Bedtime Stories are packed to the brim with their trademark bullshitting.
Gary Delabate from the Howard Stern Show, he comes at the end, he's like an animated beaver, but it's actually his face.
His teeth
and he comes out at the end, he goes, fa fa fo fi. We were tapping into that Freudian muck that Freud always got himself into.
We're bringing back Freaky Freud.
But the last period of interviews that I want to touch on in this video is the press they did for the release of their book, Tim and Eric's Zone Theory. I mentioned that it sometimes felt like the billion-dollar movie existed just for the press tour, but when it comes to Zone Theory, there's actually some truth to that. I think these interviews are where their skills at trolling interviewers and their wacky brand of satire come together to form something more thoroughly baked.
Cult. Well, what we like to do with a cult is say goodbye T and invite B in, and we have ourselves a club.
You could read the book, but you'd only be getting a part of the whole experience. The major other component of the overall joke and the statement being made lies in the surrounding media, namely these interviews. Of course, none of the interviews we've talked about really feature the real Tim and Eric. They're always playing a variety of characters all named Tim Heidecker and Eric Wareheim. In the case of Zone Theory, these characters are more defined, the versions of themselves that wrote and are selling this book.
Pristimmy, heal me.
The book itself is a wacky, nonsensical, random, often disgusting and perverse parody of the self-help genre, advertising 7 easy steps to achieve a perfect life.
Any Toto can do 7 steps.
These steps include such insane suggestions as divorcing your entire family, collecting your diarrhea in a spaghetti pot, and encouraging nude horseplay with other men at participating recreation centers. It could be easy to write this off as a goofy random book that mirrors the structure of a self-help system. However, when you add the interviews into the mix, you get the whole picture.
Do you want to see me float? I'm going to go up about 4 or 5 feet. What floor are we on?
We're on the 4th floor?
Oh, it's not going to work. I got to be on the ground floor.
The interviews reveal the full joke by acquainting us with the versions of Tim and Eric that are selling this and their motivations behind it.
The point of this book for us is to make us summer green.
What we get is a clear message about the predatory nature of these cultish self-help systems and the cynicism of their figureheads.
This is about getting the jet ski. It's about getting that big house.
If the interviewers expected Tim and Eric to show up as themselves and speak candidly about their book, they would have been sorely mistaken. As always, they refuse to drop character and promote the book as if it's not a comedic endeavor in any way.
We come in, we do this mumbo-jumbo horseshit book-selling stuff.
They're playing these eccentric, alternative healer, cult leader types that claim to be enlightened and have all of the answers.
If you don't believe everything we say, you have big problems.
They describe the bizarre contents of their book as if it's all completely normal and are exasperated when anyone doesn't understand.
A lot of the information is in the book. You can get it on Amazon.
They go on and on telling these oddly disturbing stories.
And we engaged in some nude masked horseplay.
You can choose if you want to be masked or unmasked.
He's going through his bag. Goes, well, I forgot my mask. And so I go down to the masquerade shop and get a new mask.
In true Tim and Eric fashion, there are confrontational moments as well, in which they get frustrated or angry with the exchange.
There are some photographs. Are they of your own phalluses, or is it the other people's?
Do you want to cut to commercial now?
What kind of freaking shop is this?
I don't like the tone.
They are hilariously candid about the selfish intentions behind the book and continuously steer the conversation back to how they can make money.
Buy 10 at the reduced price, and then you can upsell to all your friends and family. It's a pyramid scheme that works.
They directly play into the idea that the Zone Theory system is a scam with obvious tactics.
Somewhere in the book is a $50 bill. I can't guarantee that, but there's a good chance.
They're constantly frustrated by the idea of promoting their book, and they make it clear they don't feel like they should have to do this.
Just get the book, and then we stop with all the questions. You don't have to ask any more questions. You just do the steps.
Shut down this video and just put a little link to Amazon. Save everyone a lot of time and energy.
Why don't we do this?
Even in their explanation of the system's origins, how little they care about anything but money is perfectly clear, as they all but admit it's bullshit, but you should buy it anyways.
Honestly, we don't know that much about this. When you start going into the details, you're wasting everyone's time.
I guess my one regret is not reading the book.
The rest of it is honestly filler.
To me, these are the most noteworthy Tim and Eric interviews. I say this because they found a way to make their uniquely subversive interview style an essential contextual component of a larger comedy project, rather than simply a demonstration of a project's sense of humor or a way to express resentment of their promotional obligations. One thing is for sure, regardless of the intent or context, every one of them is good for a serious laugh. In the Zone Theory interviews, the interviewers are clearly in on the joke. It's more of an improvised skit in which Tim and Eric are playing silly characters. However, throughout all of their other interviews, there are varying degrees of this. You have to imagine that at least a good chunk of these interviewers were unfamiliar with Tim and Eric's antics. Sometimes they come across as slightly ruder, slightly more silly versions of what we would imagine their real selves to be. Sometimes they come across as cartoonishly disrespectful celebrities.
Guess what? When you fly private jets from LA to Sundance, you can use your phone.
And sometimes they barely come across as human people at all. Whether you think that some of this is annoying or inappropriate behavior, or like me think that it's comedy gold, you have to at least acknowledge the amount of creativity and improvisational talent needed to pull these kinds of gags off so well. And I'm certainly glad they exist to toss on whenever I need a laugh.